Hey gang, what's up? It's Brady from Monkey Edge here, back for part 3 of our sit down with Rick Hinderer here at Hinderer HQ in Ohio. When we left off, we'd kind of gone over the XM18 and just one of the things that, because I'm not a professional interviewer type folk guy, I'm no Jay Leno or Dave Letterman, but almost remiss in bringing up the other one of the other things that has kind of become your signature, the Lock Bar Stabilizer. Oh, you know, which has really gone on. You've been cool enough to license it to other folks, and so why don't we talk about that real quick here?
Well, the Lock Bar Stabilizer again came out of a need from a call that I was on.
Right.
I found out one of the little inherent problems with overextending the lock bar when you go to unlock the knife. Right. Usually it doesn't happen. However, you put turnout gloves on and you get a little adrenaline pumping, and right, you go to unlock the knife, you're going to push a little bit too far, and that overextends the lock bar, which of course it's a spring, so you don't have, it's no longer a spring, so yeah, it's not
now
going
it's not going to lock that blade open. Yeah. So
that obviously was a problem I wanted to address, and so that's the overextension stop that the Lock Bar Stabilizer fixed.
Right.
It fixed that. However, there was another issue with some frame locks that is a squishiness.
Right, and that's one of the things that a lot of folks don't pick up on. You know, they,
with the Lock Bar Stabilizer.
Right.
The reason why it's called a stabilizer is because it stabilizes the lock bar. It doesn't just prevent the over travel extension.
Yeah. So just for kind of a visual cue here, folks, like, you know, when you push a lock out of the way of a blade, you know, people normally associate the Lock Bar Stabilizer with the stop that keeps you from over tweaking the lock this way.
Outside.
However, the lock can also be tweaked vertically.
Yes,
you know?
yes. Because you have when you cut the lock in a frame lock in the titanium, you've created, no matter how thick that cutout is for your lock, right, it's still a chance for that lock bar to go up. And it may, depending on how you design that lock bar,
right,
okay, you'll have some that'll move more than others, okay? However, you've created that cut. If you created that cut to make that lock bar, it's going to move.
Yeah.
Okay, some knives it may take more than other knives, depending on the design, but it's going to move.
Right.
And that movement towards the back of the knife, there's a couple things. Anytime you have movement in a mechanism, it's a chance for it to fail. Anytime you have movement in that lock bar.
Right.
Also, you have, every time you're gripping the knife, you're moving that lock bar. So, and you're moving it when it's in the lock position, when the titanium lock bar is in contact with that blade tang. So, if you're moving it every time, what are you doing? You're wearing that lock bar.
Right.
So I wanted to, and also when you're actually using a knife, you have a more solid feel if the lock bar doesn't move. So I wanted to also incorporate some way to be able to stabilize that lock bar so it doesn't move towards the back of the knife.
Yeah. In all scenarios, right? In
all scenarios, actually, and that's when the Lock Bar Stabilizer came about.
And, you know, like we talked about, you know, I think probably a lot of folks in the knife world anyways kind of first saw the LBS or Lock Bar Stabilizer on you licensed it to Strider early on, and since then have gone, you know, with certain knife makers that you know, have allowed some use of it and licensed it out. So it's been something that's been, you know, other folks are no dummies when they see a good idea, you know.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, Strider seen it early on. Mick got a hold of me and asked about using it, and it kind of, you know, ZT Kershaw took it from there, from the Strider ZT collaborations, and it just got into building steam as of late. So it's something that, again, I guess I'm not sure of the saying, but invention is born out of necessity.
Right.
You know, and it was just something I seen that was needed. I love the frame lock design. It's a very, very strong design, and I give kudos to Chris Reeve for, you know, for introducing such a great idea to the knife world. So that's pretty much about the Lock Bar Stabilizer.
And just a couple more things. You know, a lot of times we get questions, guys. You know, flipper, non-flipper. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe just
personal preference.
Yeah.
Personal preference. You know, I carried a non-flipper on duty for a long time. You know, I like the non-flippers. The flippers, it's a great option of opening that knife. If you can't get to the thumb stud or whatever, it's a great option for opening that knife. Also, one of the best attributes of the flipper is not really as a flipper, but as a finger guard.
Yeah, it kind of acts as a big
exactly.
choil there.
It keeps your hand from sliding up on that blade.
Yeah.
As well as it keeps that blade from closing inadvertently, because you have that flipper there that unless you cut your finger off, it's not going to go past that.
Right.
That being said, one thing that some people have maybe noted is my flippers don't flip like some.
You know what? I was just going to bring that again as my perspective as a retailer. We get a lot of times guys will get a knife in the shop and they go,
yeah,
but it doesn't fire like a
Yeah.
It's not the same type of knife. You're not getting this is not a bearing system or and that's not to take anything away from anybody else. There's different there's an ask for every seat, and there's people looking for different things in a knife. But really the flipper on a Hinderer is more as kind of an opening assist, right? To build that momentum there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, I never took the eye off the ball
Right.
of what the knife was originally designed for. It was designed for a tough, multi-use folder that may see use in the desert. And believe me, those a guy over there, in the military or whatever that's using this knife, he's not really going to care if that blade takes an extra little flip to be able to get it out. Yeah. He's not going to care. So he's more, again about the having the finger, protection and all of that. That's more important.
And it is handy for a guy that has gloves, because sometimes thumb studs can be hard to get to. You can give it a little start, get it past the D10, just a quick wrist flick. But yeah, it's not. There's
a lot of elements that I have opinions on as far as on these flipper knives, and again, myself, I wanted a knife that could be able to go in any environment, in any condition, and be able to work like it's supposed to.
Right.
And that's why it may not flip like some of the other knives with the bearing systems and things like that. But again, I have a different criteria for my knives, and that's why they're like that.
And the other thing is the user can configure it for tip up, tip down. People have strong feelings on that. Certain knife makers have strong feelings on that. Obviously, swing both ways. Is that the right? I guess I shouldn't say that. But
I had early on when I was making the flame, I was taking orders. Okay, how do you want it, tip up or tip down? And it was hard to keep track of all that. Everybody had different ideas of what they liked, and so I thought, how about just do it both? Right. So they can do both. They can decide.
Go crazy.
And it's nice because a person can buy the knife in a tip-down configuration. That's all the knives leave the shop here in a tip-down configuration. So if you were always wonder what it'd be like to carry the tip up, well, I'm going to try it. Well, with this, being that you can go either way, you can flip the clip and decide if you like it.
And not just change it back.
Yeah.
One more thing here, and we'll kind of wrap up on the XM18. The Gen 4s have started to hit, right? Mm-hmm. And this, again, pet peeve, like everybody's wrapped around the axle, is that a Gen 4? And something like, you don't, while I would love to sell you, everybody that had a Gen 3, tell you to throw yours in the lake and buy a Gen 4, why don't you go over the thinking behind the Gen 4 and exactly what it is?
Okay, the other thing is there's some confusion out there on what features were changed to the Gen 4 from the Gen 3.
Right.
And we're going to have on our website the list of the official change. And you'll be surprised that it's one little change. And what I did was I wanted to, if a lot of you that know the XM18 know this, the secondary stop pin, the pin that's in the knife when the handle's in a closed position, it rests on the choil when it's closed. Well, that means that every blade for the XM18 has to have that choil.
Has to have at least that portion
Yeah,
there.
because that's where the blade stop is.
Right.
So what I did, the change that I made was on the flames, I originally had the stop pin higher up on the handle. The stop pin when the blade was closed, I had it higher up on the handle. And that gave me the option of either going choil or choilless.
Right.
And I want to start experimenting with some different blade shapes that does not have that choil. And that is it. That is the change to the Gen 4.
You mean I don't need to burn all my Gen 3s and
Absolutely
because
not.
they're a far inferior knife compared to the Gen 4, right, or something.
No, absolutely not.
Yes.
In fact, the Gen 3 blade will fit into a Gen 4 just fine.
So I mean, I was kind of being facetious and a smart ass just because again we get questions every day.
Yeah.
You know, it is an evolution of the design that
Exactly.
kind of allows some versatility in terms of what the blade shapes come. But from a user perspective,
There's
a guy that
absolutely
has,
no difference.
you know, if you have a Sponto Gen 3 and a Sponto Gen 4, you know, one's not going to fall apart,
No.
you know, before the other.
No,
one.
there's no.
Something,
In fact,
you know.
the stop pin actually went back to the flame model,
Right.
which was before the XM18s. So that's all I did. The only reason why we called it a Gen 4 was because our customers would want to call it a Gen 4.
Right.
You know, because it's different. Oh, there's something different. And believe me, if there's anything different, or the customers are going to find it.
Right.
They'll pick it out very quickly. So,
And as far as compatibility with all of the, you know, the scales, the standoffs and everything, the only, you know, so all your Gen 3 hardware, scales and everything is good to go with the exception of the new full titanium scales, correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes, everything else is the exact same.
So you're here right from the man. All your other stuff will fit, you know, vice versa, with the exception of the titanium replaceable scales that replace the titanium.
And we're
liners.
going to start changing those on the next batch. We're going to start putting that because the stop pin on these on the Gen 4s now go all the way through.
Okay.
So yeah, everything will be the same.
So there you go. Fair
and
enough.
that's the only change. Nothing else. That's the only change.
No
to the Gen
secret
4.
recipe or something.
Everything
yeah,
else,
like you can.
and that's what. And again, just to touch very briefly, that's what some people they'll see something that's a little bit different. Again, folks, these knives are like custom knives, and we put them together by hand.
Yeah.
You know, so you might see like when I sharpen the blade. Well, this looks a little different than this one. I sharpen the.
Yeah.
I sharpen them by hand.
You know, and sometimes the guys just get a hair up their ass, and you know this part's
They'll
gonna
try
be
something.
blasted, and
Yeah,
this
they'll
is gonna
try
be,
something
you know,
different.
yeah. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it's a.
you know, they're not. It's not coming out of a robotic, you know, like assembly line or something.
No.